Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Spotlight on Customer Success Operations. Today, I should first introduce my co-hosts. I'm here with Matthew Lind over from Texas, Austin, Texas. How are you, Matthew?
Hey, Jean, but I'm not the star of this show. Let's get right to our guest.
Awesome. And so here today we have the wonderful pleasure of actually having our first European on the show, or someone that lives on another continent. And so we're super excited to have Auste Foster with us today, coming to us from the UK. Auste, prior to starting out her own company, most recently, she worked previously at Gainsight as a solution architect. And previous to that, she was also at Medallia. And so we're super excited to have you here, Auste. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. It's an honor to be talking to both of you and be invited here. So thank you so much.
And Auste, can you tell us a little bit about your background and maybe a bit more of who you are and sort of what your experience has been in customer success operations?
Yes, no, absolutely. So a bit of a background thinking, how early should I start? Where did it all started? So
Birth,
I think
maybe, or did you hop right into the field right at birth?
selling the universe. Yeah. No, I think it's like, so yeah, while I was having my 2 degrees, so I studied mathematics and economics, bachelor's, master's. I think this is where it all started, where I found huge excitement into converting some sort of problem statement, whether it was macroeconomics, inflation is rising, into a simple model. Draw the graph or write some sort of sequence of logical steps of parameters, how it's going to impact the next set of parameters into the other and so on. So I think this is where my excitement's like, okay, I love putting some sort of structures in place and converting whatever humans verbalizing onto the paper into graphical or the structural output. So my very first job was in procurement consulting, which obviously, again, working with models and trying to make various savings in HR, IT, and so on. And this is when I start falling in love with Excel. And I had an amazing mentor, Simon, who taught me all the bits and bobs with Excel, which I was spending hours. And I remember my very proud moment when I created a model in Excel on how to best, what to do, what was the best outcome with one of your vehicles in your fleet. So we're working with a logistical company, and I had to learn everything about 8-tonner, 4-tonner, vans, and so on. What's the life cycle on the or lifespan on the road, and so again, loads of various inputs. I didn't care what the industry is. It's just like, again, taking various inputs and then putting that into the model and then spitting out some sort of answers like, okay, this vehicle is ready to be scrapped out, move it to the yard. Another vehicle, okay, you should keep it on the road for the next 6 months because the prices of this vehicle now in the market are different. So again, I love that input, output, and some sort of model creation. And at the same job, this is when my love for technology became apparent because we use technology to run auctions. So it's a bit like you go on eBay and you bid to buy something. In procurement, we used to run reverse auctions. So suppliers come on the designated time and day, and we have the vendor who wants to procure something, and magic happens. Well, you see how the price goes down for 5 or 10 minutes and so on. So this is when I really saw, okay, I can see in my eyes, how can it make the buying process more efficient? You can save a lot of money. And even with purchasing or using that procurement technology, it's like, right, I want to be involved in this new age of properly using technology to make business more efficient. And then my road took me to another technology company. So this way I started my path in the technology, became CSM for 1 year. I think that's the most difficult job in the market, to be honest, like to be CSM, look at the big of business, like properly, especially if you have 30 or 40, how you going through the meetings and relationship building. And so it's like, no, not for me. And this is when I joined then Medallia. So, and stayed there for 4 years. And it was fascinating from multiple perspectives. So yeah, in Medallia was joined as a, I can't remember, was an analyst or whatever position was that, but again, implementing the customer experience technology for various companies, that automotive, telecommunications, B2C, B2B, and designing that customer experience, which also felt passionately like your customer patches something to you. Of course, you need to like not be friends, but make sure they're happy, not just like we're no longer in that day and age where the customer purchase technology and say, okay, see you in 3 years when the renewal is coming. Like the market has moved on from that behavior. So yes, in Medallia was first of all, it's a fast American company. I was like, oh, I love working with American people. Amazing. So happy, cheerful, jolly, not like us, like sarcastic and sad Europeans. So yeah, love the Medallia journey. And yeah, besides the implementation of the CX journeys, I worked in there also as a managed service member. So we can say post-implementation and various add-on projects and so on. But what really, really kind of my heart will never leave Medallia, and I think it's one of the best companies I worked for. I'm not sure I'll ever find a company like that, is the culture. They nailed it so well. So the founders, Amy and Borja, they invested so much, and that rather than, let's say, fixing people and trying to do with the moving the responsibility of people development fully into the post-hiring, they had a very strict hiring process. The final round of interview process was with the either PhD psychologist or someone else equivalent. And only 2 people in the whole company could do that interview, no one else. And the company grew from 500 to 700 to 800. And it was these interview, they said basically, okay, for the next half an hour, just tell me about yourself. Tell me, why did you make certain decisions? And I'll just see if I have any questions. And you just talk about yourself for half an hour. And it's like, oh, that's an easy thing. And from that, they decide basically, do you have a growth mindset or do you not? Because they only hired people with growth mindset. And there's
Wow.
like, no, we're not going into the fixed mindset people.
So that was sort of the underlying idea, is like they were looking for a personality trait or maybe a penchant for learning, and that was going to be it. So let's take this to CS or CS ops. Like if someone were to ask you then, did you even through some of these experiences, like what does a growth mindset look like in terms of customer success or customer success operations, either one?
Yeah.
What would you say?
I mean, it's like, it's just like, it could be as very wide and in a way generic as growth mindset. It's all about, I can learn, like, my talent and my skill set doesn't define me. I can grow. So first of all, curiosity, obviously curiosity, why things are working, like working right now. It doesn't matter that you haven't seen them before, or you haven't experienced them. Just being curious, because even before you propose various fixes, I think it's important to understand why things have been implemented or working as expected. So I think that curiosity for sure. Again, if we take another part of growth mindset in operations. So obviously with operations, there are certain part, processes, workflows, and there is technology. So I do want to say creativity. And again, I'm going here a little bit more of a kind of a broad side, because I think more like generic answer says what sort of person you need to be: attention to details, mathematical, structured. Yes, of course. Yeah. So kind of I also think that creativity, which really makes you stand out. And what I've seen even from my days, the best results the companies receive is when we learn from someone outside of their function or even outside of their vertical. So it's great that there are best practices within your function. It's great that there are best practices within your company, or how your other friends are doing in CS ops, or how administering platforms. But cherry picking from some other departments, like, oh, we haven't been doing like this. How should we involve? And one brilliant example which just comes to mind goes a bit to CX. And so how Apple stores used to have these geniuses. Have you ever experienced them, where you come in a shop and it's like, oh yeah, sure, I can help you. What do you want? You don't pay them anything. They just nice people hanging around helping you. So my previous client in automotive industry, I said, you know what? We're gonna we're gonna do this. We're gonna hire a very junior intern who has no willingness to sell in a way, but is super excited about the cars and the geek. It's a bit geeky. So they installed those interns, I think they call them experts of geniuses, with the iPad, and just wandering through the automotive shop floor around the cars. Someone comes in and asks, hey, do you want to see do you have any questions about the car? Do you want to know what colors provide, and so on? And it worked like magic for them. It's like, obviously this is a very simple example, but this is a learning how you become from another industry, which you might not think is like, mobile phones and telecommunications to the
I really like that. I
yeah.
think that makes a lot of sense. And your points about creativity, like creativity and pulling from other fields, like CS or customer success in itself is so new, but it takes from so many different structures. Like it's very markety, it's very salesy in a way. It's very operational. It loses a lot of project management. So I'm a firm believer as well. Like we should be exposing ourselves to all these different fields and being able to learn from some of these fields that have been around, for 50, 100 years, maybe even more. And so they've evolved themselves significantly more. And so pulling that into our world, I think makes a lot of sense. And so what do you do now as a consultant? Like what's your focus as a consultant now?
So then after Medallia, I found Gainsight. I was the first professional services member in EMEA department, so working from London office, running that department, learning solution architect, trade, again, implementing technology, as well as working off post-implementation clients on add-ons. And being there for almost 5 years, when the company grows, and you need to satisfy investors, the team's becoming bigger, more KPIs, more processes, which I thought I saw a gap a little bit in the market, where I know that I could use my skills much more efficiently if I towards the customer. So if working for official company, I could spend 3.5 days, 4 days working on the projects, whereas the rest days would be doing the updates to my managers, making sure I submit timesheets and all the other things which you need to do when you work part of the customer. It's like, I could spend this actually delivering value to the customer. I knew that I'm the most experienced Gainsight person in the whole EMEA region. People who I've learned, like, I'm not sure if you know, Wayne, Joan, Sarah, they all like master admins in some other companies as well. It's like, well, there is no brainer then. Well, no brainer. Say a lot of takes vulnerability and being brave to try and go independent. So I decided to call myself I offer Gainsight Adoption Services, which is basically going in either implementing Gainsight or optimizing Gainsight, and working with whether that's Gainsight administrators or various senior stakeholders, and again, going back into my love of modeling, how can I take that big statement, big problem you have, and try to convert into technology so that your CSMs or whoever using it would go smoothly. It's like, how many times are we so annoyed when technology doesn't work? Like, it makes you then stupid. No one wants to feel that they're stupid. It's like you want to just flow seamlessly through technology. So it should be optimized in setup that you almost forget that you're using technology. It's like, yes, that's what I want to focus on, like deriving, architecting, brainstorming the best way. So that would be optimal for the CSMs or whoever end users are, while still delivering or keeping that big picture in mind. So whether it's churn, renewals, onboarding, because you always need to satisfy budget holders as well. It's always nice to create many reports, but if no one is using them, then yeah.
Auste, how do you I love this image you've given of like transforming a problem into a model, or at least somehow you like finding a pattern that you can start to work with or manipulate, even some might say experiment with. To a lot of folks in our audience, they're, in there in the trenches, maybe trying to get those skills or gain those skills, or trying to get out of the exclusively the administrative game and into the strategic mindset, the growth mindset, the problem solving. What are some of the techniques you used, or maybe even what are some of the types of questions or the literal questions you would pose to your stakeholders as you were searching for both the problem statement, and then sort of how did you transform that into a model?
Okay, so let me try to answer the question, because I was like, the answer could last a presentation, and so try to
Undoubtedly.
yeah.
Yeah, but
So
like what were some of the techniques, or like maybe some of the top ones that you used as you were like interviewing, or you might call it discovery, depending on
yeah.
the format we were in, and like, okay, how do you conduct that discovery in a way that's helpful to your stakeholders? They feel like they're heard, and to you as sort of the problem solver, or as the technologist trying to fish your way into a solution. So like, what are some of the things you did, high level?
Yeah, sure. So, the high level, there are a few ways to approach stakeholder, and does depend who you talk to, but I do like industry terminology, a little bit of day in life questionnaire. So tell me about your day. How is your week going? So from the stakeholders, to try to see if there are any patterns. Could be like, yeah, Monday I log in, I look at my customers, but Tuesday, Wednesday are my meeting days, and then Thursday I had to spend the whole day admin. Oh, okay, admin, tell me a little bit more. So are there any repetitive tasks you do, and so on? So go through the day or week in life. So that's one dimension I look. Other dimension look is from the customer perspective. So customer journey. So whether you have or you don't have, or first of all explain. So customer journey, if you know, it's like key stages your customer moves through, or your customer moves through when they engages with you. So onboarding, nurturing, expansion, renewal, churn, so on. So could you describe to me the stages you are aware of? Because some people might not be aware of the renewal, what's happening on boarding, and vice versa. So describe to me what stages you're aware of, and what do you think your company is doing and what you're doing at the moment on those stages. So this is kind of the two high-level ways I would approach the scenarios. And then I usually move, whether that's a user stories or wish list. What would you like to do more? What would you like to do less of? What's your main pain points? What would you like to see? What are your main goals? It's a last part of my discovery from the stakeholders.
I
And
love
then,
that customer journey question, because I have posed that question in some of my work as well. And I actually listen less for the specifics of the customer journey, and often I'm listening for consistency among the people I ask. And sometimes you get totally different answers, and you're like, okay, that is a signal as well. Or someone's like, what's the customer journey? Do we have one of those? And so I find that I'm often listening for the content of answers, but I'm also listening for patterns in answers as well.
That's a very good point, Matthew. Yeah, it's the patterns. And there's so many times I was like, oh, I see you answer differently. And it's like, well, yeah, Auste, because we're responsible for different segments. Okay, well, you didn't tell me that. Okay. So that's like sometimes like it tricks me. I thought I found something I can fix, like onboarding journey, but it's like, no, we're on onboarding totally different because we're in different segments. Like, okay, fine, so it's not too big of a problem. So yeah, it's all this questioning, this like, yeah, 5 whys and so on, but you need to know what to ask because the customer, you see some certain personalities and so on, they're not going to say, okay, this is onboarding journey for my type of customer, for my segment, for my geography. What would be lovely, but
Be great. But that's where I like your day in the life question or a series of questions, because that you, without saying, so tell me about your customer journey, which is someone might be like, I don't know what our customer journey is, but there probably is one, whether it's deliberate or accidental. And by asking the day in the life question, you sort of can fish out the answers to that question without, you using that question. If what I said just made sense, but it's a way of discovering in a way that it allows your stakeholder to open up to you.
Exactly, yeah. And again, so it's like when you have your, let's say, goals, pain points, wish list, you marry them with a customer journey, you marry them with a day in life, and this is where you start going. So I love to map each user story or wish list to the goal or to the challenge, and then therefore already know, let's say if you're using Gainsight feature, okay, which potential Gainsight features could satisfy these wish list. So then when I move into the design, not only I have a list of wish list user stories which could potentially be implemented, but I also have the context of the day life and the specific process. And it all goes like, I remember when I've just started in Gainsight, you know how you're still junior, you're so focused, like, no, let's design the call to action. It's like, yeah, but this renewal journey actually has dependency on journey orchestrate and the timeline and yeah, but we're not focusing on that. Let's tell me what's a call to action. And you realize you're not talking with the customer. You're thinking from your selfish, non-experienced solution architect perspective. And when you learn your trade, you realize that ideally you need to talk customer language. So it's like, okay, tell me about your renewal journey. And it's like, okay, that's CTA, that's timeline journey orchestrated, that's dashboard. It's like, that's your job as an expert to design those features and talk rather than feature language, but talk like the journey language or their customer language or their process language.
How do you, as you work through all those different pieces of those models, like how do you look at prioritizing or focusing? I imagine like you've run into in the past times where, maybe there's a bunch of gaps or maybe there's a bunch of things like some folks want a bunch of playbooks or the renewals broken, so we need to fix the process there or whatnot. How do you look at prioritizing all that work with your customers?
So there are a few parameters. So first of all, if there is no contract between me and the customer, which defines certain number of process we need to, or features, so in a way protects and helps client prioritize, we need to move to something else. But usually that's not, especially that's how it works in technology companies. Medallia, Gainsight, you can create 3 CTAs, 1 journey orchestrator, and nothing more in a way. So also helps client to prioritize. But now usually with my contracts, like I saw how that jammed customers' creativity. So now in my contract, I don't add that. And I almost take the risk myself or under my company to create a beast and let down my customer that, actually this is 500-hour projects we created now, which we need to go and build. So you need to tread this line very carefully. However, I do believe in like, okay, let's design the beast and now let's chop it. where could we potentially, for example, let's take renewal journey. We designed it and we said, okay, we'd like to launch this A to Z. However, we see, for example, you missing a customer start date or renewal date, it's not flowing. Okay, so what we can do, we can ask your CSMs to go and clean up. So we do month 1 of launching this process. It would be called cleanup, renewal cleanup month. And then from month 2, whenever the renewal dates or contract dates cleaned up, we can launch with the further steps. So sometimes we go in each process, we prioritize given the data. Do we have any automations there? Is the data clean? Is it coming? Is the process semi-clear? I've seen customers being successful even with a 50 defined process. I'm not saying say, oh, 80%, nah, 50 is enough. It still help you with something. Just start using timelines, start taking notes on your renewal, and that will give you visibility for your team. So that's another on the so contract, data, and process, kind of key prioritization.
I like that, how you drive outcomes. Like, I think the day and age where you buy things like, I want 3 CTAs, I want 2 journey orchestrator campaigns, like that would be like going to buy a car and saying, I want 3 pieces of glass, I want 2 cylinders, I want 3 wheels. Like, who buys a car for that? You either want a fast car, or you want an economical car, or you want an electric car. Like, you want an outcome. You're not looking for pieces. And so I think, yeah, the way that scoping projects, and I was previously a consultant in this space as well. Like, I think the move to drive outcomes and business value to help your customer achieve what they need to achieve, whether it's cut retention or like drive expansions, maybe improve renewals, whatever it may be. I think that's the mode, and probably speaks to the leadership and their decision making very closely. So I think you're on the right path there. That's really awesome to hear.
No, thank you. I hope so too. It's as you say, it goes from away from kind of normal professional department scoping and adding like parameters into SOW to protect the team, the scope, the time. But it's the right thing to do. If you're in a customer success, I think it's you need to be, especially for me myself, like a small company who I own. I want my customers to be successful. Obviously, I want to return business. I want to be talked in the market, and my main goal is operating like I care, and I do care. I want them to be successful, and therefore all my approaches should be customer success centric, not me, Auste, my company centric.
Yeah, makes sense.
Another question, and as we sort of wind down our time together, but I think there are a number of folks, self included, who have thought, I would love to go step out onto that consultancy plank and see what happens, or I'd love to form my own business, but maybe they're still working at a medallia or at a traditional role until they can figure that out. What advice might you offer to folks who are like, I'd like to go experiment, or long term, I'd like to own my own consulting type of company? Since you made the transition successfully, what would you offer as advice to people who are thinking about it?
I like how you add successfully. How do you know that? I made the transition. Success yet to be defined. And that is actually will lead me to a way answer question. How do you define your success? If you define the success in this typical DNA age, how we define is by a result, number of clients, dollar terms, and so on. But I realized that going solo, especially from the background where I'm manage project, I'm the master in delivery, but my marketing skills, my sales skills, talking about myself, why someone should hire me, why should they pay me, like that's never been my strong point. I never performed in that capacity. And I realized that certain people will see me and talk to me first as more of like salesperson before they see my project management skills. And they might never hire me because like, oh, the way she didn't sell herself, And it's like, it's such a shame in a way. So defining the success by number of engagements, number of reach outs, how much have you invested in yourself? Like it becomes so broad because the most difficult thing is just to keep going and when to stop. There's so many days a question, should I just go back and get full-time jobs? Like, no. not yet, not yet. There is still in me to keep going. So I think the advice is you need to get ready. You need to get ready for the unknown, for being so uncomfortable in the areas, for being able to be your ops department, your CS ops, your sales ops, you know, the accountings, bookkeeping, your content, how do you appear in the market? And then there is all now digital media strategy, posting, posting, posting. Do you, you know, it's yeah. So being comfortable of being uncomfortable.
Yeah. I
That's
hear
the
that growth mindset idea coming through. You didn't use the words there in the answer, but I hear it in there all over the place. I'm like, yep, you probably need to have a growth mindset if you're gonna go that route because you're gonna have to get curious, you're gonna have to get creative, you're gonna have to get industrious even and see what happens.
absolutely,
So,
absolutely.
as
Um,
someone who's done it previously as a consultant, I would say it's the opportunity of a lifetime as well, because I personally believe that I've grown more professionally and personally through the times that I was a consultant than any other time in my career. Because of that, exactly what you said, Auste, like you get tossed into so many different things. You have to learn how to sell yourself. I was previously a lot shyer, and I was an internal employee for so long, and you know, sometimes you fail as an internal employee, but you still get paid. You still get like, you know, you might have not done well on a project, it might have not gone well, or maybe that, you know, renewal automation didn't quite work out, but you still get paid. Whereas a consultant, you can get fired and then you don't get paid. And it's a lot, I mean, you can get fired, you know, as a full-time employee as well, but it's a lot easier for them to move you out if they don't like what you're doing. And I think you always have to constantly chase the next project as well. So you have to be aware of like what's down, you know, the pipe for you. But that pushes you as a human, which I think is like an amazing opportunity. You don't learn when you're kind of in the status quo and you're just sort of doing the same thing a lot. So you know, such a wonderful opportunity. Is there anything we ask this question a lot to others, and just curious, and from your take on the world, and maybe, you know, your perspective might be a little bit different with you being in Europe. What do you think is the future of CS ops? Anything, or customer success operations? Is there anything that comes to mind that you think is going to be the next play for yourself or for your customers or the industry as a whole?
so obviously everyone is talking, you know, AI, digital, digital, these buzzwords, and of course it's gonna come and it's gonna be used, but I don't think, you know, I met it suddenly in a conference pass. It's like, I'm so afraid I'm gonna lose my job. I'm like, I don't think so. Like technology, like, yes, I'm sure like there are amazing tests being done somewhere in the dark room and they achieve the results. Would it be public in the market for us to use it? I don't like I don't think so. Yes, a certain automation, like Gainsight release, you know, the AI sheet, summary, or of machine learning and so on. So I think it will be easier to get certain tasks done for sure. Now, the only thing to watch out, and this is where so much of what the world is going, I think Keith said in previous your podcast, said it so well. People build so much complexity within their silos is just, which means we going into transition being like, hey, this is silo, let's get together. So which means if we're gonna go that route, or those companies which are going that route to break down silos and move away from complexities to the simplicity, then it will be easier for CS ops people to operate and do their job. So that simplicity coming from business and AI automations to do certain tasks, I think that will be amazing job to have. However, if those silos are not breaking and more complexity being added, that small AI will make the job not nice at all, and even worse if if some people are not liking that job at the moment.
I love that. That's the digital transformation I think that we all have to go through. Like customer experience, like for a customer, they don't care about your silos. They don't care about like that you have a person who does X, or that this is their role and responsibility, another person for another different role and responsibility. They just want help, or they want to drive the value that they're expecting. And so I think you're bang on in terms of like driving integration across the customer journey and making sure that we build horizontally instead of these like vertical departments all the time. So I love that.
I
It's a
think,
great perspective.
yeah, I think I think I've read or had this quote: if the customer can feel your org, that's not customer success. Like, you're not
Right.
running a customer-centric organization. So yeah.
That's an awesome point to leave off with. I think if your customer if your customer feels your org, maybe you're down the wrong path. Sorry. Really, really exciting to have you here. So excited to have our first European. I definitely think we have to have more Europeans, Matthew, on the show. But thank you so much, Auste, for joining us today. This has been wonderful to hear about your journey and some of your practical skills and the things that you've learned along the way. So thanks again.
No, thank you. It's been an honor, and enjoy the rest of your Friday.